Good afternoon and welcome to our October 26th City of Glendale Audit Committee meeting. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on specific agenda items will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Roll call, please.
Committee Member Edwin Belen. Ed Kashadurian.
Here.
Jack Mavian.
Here.
Tom O'Shaughnessy.
Present.
And Chair Alex Parahon.
Present. Next item, please.
Item number 2, business agenda. Part A, report of recording secretary regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for the October 26, 2023 Audit Committee meeting was posted on Monday, October 23, 2023 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Part B, Brown Act training, Lucy Varpetian, Principal Assistant City Attorney.
Good afternoon, everyone. We like to do these Brown Act trainings regularly, especially now when we have quite a few new members. And so we do have a PowerPoint prepared, and if we could get that up. How do we get the TV to see it too?
They control it.
Okay.
They will once.
Okay. So today we'll be talking about the Ralph M. Brown Act. The purpose of the Brown Act is to ensure that the decision-making processes of legislative bodies of local agencies are conducted in public, and they are open. It is working, except I don't see the, I guess maybe I gotta click it twice. And that they are open to public scrutiny except where the legislature expressly provides exceptions, and there are a handful. I don't think that we are going to have any that are going to be applicable to this committee, but I can touch on them briefly. The general requirements, legislative bodies are, you'll typically see it with the city council. All of the boards and commissions are also all considered legislative bodies. And essentially, you may not meet to discuss, hear, deliberate, or take action on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction unless you do so in an open and public meeting such as this. You'll see that all of our meetings have always been controlled by an agenda, and the legislative body may only discuss, hear, deliberate, or take action on matters that are described on the agenda. And sometimes you'll hear us try to bring us back to what is on the agenda and what we can discuss. That's really the only time where we try to direct the discussion, but other than that, and the purpose behind that is that agendas are posted, and so we want to make sure that the public is aware of what it is you will be discussing in order for them to be here to listen. Every agenda must have a public comment period, and we must allow the public to attend and address matters on the agenda and within the body subject matter jurisdiction. So you'll see that we typically have a specific area where they can speak, and then if there's something that's on the agenda, the member of the public can speak directly while that item is being discussed. So when someone turns in a card, it'll say general public comment, or it'll be specific to agenda number 2 or 3. So as I said, it's applicable to all legislative bodies. This is one of them, and it applies. It's important to say when it applies. A congregation of the majority of the members of the legislative body at the same time and place to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on an item within your subject matter jurisdiction. So you need a majority. 2 of you can get together. 3 of you cannot get together. You can get together and talk about sports, as we were doing right before the meeting started, but you cannot get together and talk about what is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this specific committee. And what is a meeting? It's where actions are taken. There's a collective concurrence on a matter before the body. You don't have to take an action for a meeting to occur. Conversations amongst the members about issues that's within the subject matter jurisdiction would also be considered a meeting. And deliberation includes collective acquisition of facts. So, you visit a particular site and you're trying to gather information in connection with an audit. That would be one of those. I have to learn to do that. Okay. Okay. The exceptions. Conferences, I'm not aware that this group has gone to a conference, but those would be an exception. Community meetings, those happen pretty frequently, and we encourage you all to attend those. Open and noticed meetings of another legislative body. Sometimes you attend council meetings, and it's okay if a majority of you attend those. Social or ceremonial and individual contacts, those are all exceptions. This is sometimes an issue that is unintended. Serial meetings, the use of direct communication, personal intermediaries, or technological devices employed by a majority of the legislative body members in order to develop a collective concurrence as to action to be taken. That's not permitted. And what that means is essentially two people talking with each other, and then one of them goes and talks to a third person. That even though all three of them didn't come together at the same time, that would be problematic. You don't want to have either a committee member or even a staff member or even a member of the public. So sometimes you'll reach out to staff and it sounds pretty cryptic. That's because we're trying to help you not violate the Brown Act. We can't tell you what the other committee member has said so that we don't create this issue of a serial meeting. So serial meetings are a series of communications taken as a whole, involves a majority, and there's concurrence. What that means is facilitates an agreement or compromise amongst the members and the like. And it looks like this. One person speaks, A speaks to B, B speaks to C. Now you've got collective concurrence or a serial meeting. It can also look like this. One member is speaking to a couple of other people. Sometimes you're calling in to have a discussion with the chair, and so that you think you're the only one who's reached out. Unbeknownst to you, other committee members have also reached out, so you want to avoid that. The social media platforms, I think most everyone is on social media. I know that I'm friends with some of you on social media. The requirement is that a member may not respond directly to any communication posted or shared by another member on social media platform that is open to and accessible to the public regarding agency business on the internet platform. So if one person posts something, the rest of you should not click the thumbs up or the emojis or anything like that, or even comment. You can do your own posts, just don't support each other on a social media platform. Like somebody posts something on Facebook, don't you also go onto their page and then express your like or dislike for it. Types of meetings, you'll see that almost all of our meetings are noticed longer than 72 hours, but there's a minimum requirement of 72 hours. If we don't make it in time, then that item will not be on our regular meeting agenda. It doesn't really happen all the time, but on certain occasions, we have special meetings. As you know, our regular meetings are 4 times a year. They're on the 4th Thursday of each quarter. If collectively we say that we're not able to meet and everyone says we can meet on Wednesday instead of Thursday, that may end up becoming a special meeting instead of a cancellation. The posting requirements are slightly different. It's 24 hours versus 72 hours. Emergency meetings and adjourned meetings are usually things that we don't really deal with in this committee, so I'll move on. Agendas and agenda packets, and you'll see for each agenda item, there's a brief general description of each item to be discussed or addressed. And that's really to make sure that the public understands what you will be discussing so that they can make a decision as to whether or not they'd like to come or not come. The notices must be available in alternative formats. They must be available to the public, and they have to be delivered to the majority, so that's the 72-hour rule. We have to get it to you in that time frame. Moving right along, no action or discussion shall be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Again, these sometimes come up in the context of an oral comment. A member of the public will come. They'll discuss something that is really interesting and very, very current, and everyone wants to engage in that discussion, and we cannot. And that's because it's not on the agenda. Everybody else who would want to speak on that topic isn't here. They didn't know that it was going to be discussed, so those things we may not discuss. You can ask some questions for clarification of the person making the statement, or maybe even, we have room for committee member comments. During those comments, you can make brief announcements, and might be something that one of your colleagues expresses interest and asks a question. That's okay. Brief questions are fine, and there's a place in the agenda where you can do that, and it's in the either in the oral comment period or the committee comment period. Just another point about the non-agenda items. Again, we cannot take action or direct staff to undertake action other than reporting back to the body. And the reason for that is, again, members of the public would not be here to have heard what was going on. These next items typically will not come up in the context of our meetings. Public access and participation. Again, this has never been an issue for this committee. We cannot require conditional attendance. We can't say you must sit on the left side of the room. You have to wear a name tag. We cannot, those are not, we cannot require any sort of a condition for one's attendance. And then we've already talked about the opportunity to address the legislative body. The only thing is, because this is the Audit Committee, we want to make sure that the comments from the public are germane to the work that you do. It has to be within your subject matter jurisdiction. On a day where you're discussing, I don't know, maybe water rates, that would be appropriate. But on any other day, that would be something that should really go to a different commission, or it really should go to City Council. So sometimes you'll see us end a comment at that point, and it's mostly because it's directed to the wrong body. You can't do anything about that. We make sure that people who who speak a different language, there's translators. We add more time for that. The public, if they choose, can videotape the meetings. Teleconference participation. So the general rule, and this may come up from time to time, one of you is at a conference that's taking place in Lake Tahoe, and it's happening right at this time, and you'd like to participate. The requirement is that, let's say you want to do it in your hotel room. The hotel room has to be accessible to the public. So members of the public, where you are, should be able to come in and be able to address this body from that location. So that's a requirement of the teleconference participation. The agenda must be posted at each teleconference location. The quorum still has to be here, and then all the votes have to be taken by roll. And that's happened on occasion, and you've been away for a week, or we had a, the one I remember is with civil service. They were going to be in Lake Tahoe for a week, and so they were able to post the agenda outside the door. Obviously, no one in Lake Tahoe cares about the civil service code, so they're not going to be coming to your vacation location to say this, but it does have to be open and accessible to the public. We had a council member who was on a cruise once and wanted to participate. Well, that could not happen because there was no ability for the public. I mean, you'd have to buy a ticket, and remember I said no conditions to attending, so that couldn't happen. There are two new exceptions to this. The proclaimed state of emergency, that really won't apply to this group, but the emergency circumstances may. And so let's go through those. The other parts about posting, et cetera, is still important, but the emergency circumstances would have to be physical or family medical emergency, the just cause childcare or caregiver need, a contagious illness, a need related to a physical or mental disability, or a travel on official business of the body of the city. If that happens, if for example you have you have that type of an emergency and you have to you cannot attend the meeting and you don't want to not attend, because not attending is also an option, we would encourage you to notify staff at your earliest opportunity. And it's possible, it includes at the start of the meeting, if that is the earliest that you can make the communication. Provide a general description of the need to attend remotely. You must disclose if there are other adults in the remote location and the general nature of the relationship, which is sort of a bizarre, your spouse is sitting in the room, you have to say that. And must participate through audio and video, and it requires the approval of the legislative body. So if that does come up, and it may, we would encourage you to let us know as quickly as possible. Okay, I should keep up with the clicking here. Okay. Just continuing on this, on the teleconference participation, I go back to the quorum must be present at the main location, so we do require at least 3 of you to be here. The public must be able to participate via two-way AV communication platform, Zoom or WebEx or anything like that. And they have to be able to participate in real time. So the only caveat to this is that the exception may not be used more than 3 consecutive months. That would be really difficult for us because we meet 4 times a year anyway. Or 20% of the regular meetings in a calendar year, more than 2 meetings if the legislative body meets less than 10 times per year, which would be this one. So really 2 times is your only option here. That is the end of the PowerPoint, and I kind of went through that pretty quickly, but I do want to open it up for questions. If you have any, I'm happy to answer them.
Anyone has any questions?
The one example is COVID, of course, where you'd not be able to attend. If we needed to do this and have one of the members of the commission attend differently, do we still meet here with Zoom, or is there another location in the city core that we would be meeting at? How easy is it for this room to be Zoomed?
So all of these meetings have the ability to connect. So we would not, the meeting itself would not change location. The member who, for example, has COVID would call in from home.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on AB 992. That's the social media platform. Is that something that's just in relation to the committee members here, or is it also relationship with council members out there with us?
So the question is there overlap between what the council person is saying and what is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee? So I would just caution you to be careful with those.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you for a great presentation, Ms. Barpetian. All right, next item, please.
Item number 3, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The committee may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The audit committee chair may refer the matter to staff for investigation and report.
All right, I have no cards right now. Do we have any phone calls?
No, we don't.
Great. Next item.
Item number 4, approval of minutes. A, minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on July 27th, 2023.
Do we need to do a motion? Can someone do a motion for approval of minutes?
Move adoption.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Committee member Edwin Belen,
Yes.
Ed Kashadurian,
Yes.
Jack Mavian,
Yes.
Tom O'Shaughnessy,
Yes.
and Chair Alex Parajon.
Approved. Next action item?
Item number 5, action items. Part A, discussion regarding potential modification to the Audit Committee.
I'm sorry, just on the meeting, the minutes vote, I was just noting that we did have one absence, and it's okay to vote in the affirmative on that if the member had viewed the minutes and can attest to the accuracy of the contents of the minutes. And so if that's not the case, then we should note an abstention.
And that was Jack that was absent, right?
And I retract and vote abstention.
Okay, and then, again, I'm sorry to be a stickler for these, but you did make the motion, right? Or you made the motion, okay.
no,
We're all set then, thank you.
All right, which item next, please?
Item number 5, action items. A, discussion regarding potential modification to the Audit Committee regular meeting schedule. Part 1, resolution modifying the Audit Committee regular meeting schedule.
So, good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Per the request of the Audit Committee Chair from the July meeting, we have prepared this report to provide the committee with a few additional available meeting schedule options. I'm glad all the members are here for this discussion. So, in the report, we listed the factors that impact the meeting schedule options. I'll not go over those one by one, but in summary, the factors being considered include city council meetings, staff availability, that includes the assistant city manager, executives, GTVs, staff availability, and then also meeting schedules of the other boards and commissions, meeting room logistics and availability, including setup time and report preparation time. So after considering all these factors, 4 additional options are listed for you to consider. So total 5, if including the current one. So these are, let me move this to here. So these are the on Wednesday, last Wednesday at 3:30 or 4, or last Thursday at 8 a.m. or the existing 2 p.m. So that's the, so you have basically 2 alternatives. One is to pick a new time, date and time, and then the other one is to keep the current schedule. We also have the calendar here for your convenience. Let's see, shrink it a little bit. So our 4 meetings are in January, so I highlighted these potential possible dates. January, April, July, and October. So I guess now we're just open for discussion.
And can you put the dates back that are available so that we can have maybe
Okay.
a brief silent
Here.
conversation here within the group, if possible? Or is that possible? We can briefly discuss the availability of the 5 items?
Yes, but you don't have to do it silently.
Well, I mean, without the
Amongst
mic,
yourselves.
among ourselves, without the mic on.
Yeah.
All right, so give us a minute here. All right, guys,
I think we asked for 8 a.m. That's what we did.
Okay, so,
Yeah, so there's-
but you do it publicly, right? You're not off camera.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine, we don't care about that. Please, Tom?
Well, if you look at the choices we have, you look at the fact that this meeting also has heads of departments, auditors, people that their most important concern on the fourth Thursday or fourth Wednesday is us. I think you want to preclude the one that starts, that ends at 5:30 and the one that ends at 6, because to meet after 5 p.m., I think is unfair to other people's work times or location times for the city. So that, I think that brings us down to 3. This one, 8 a.m. on the Thursday, or the 3 to 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. My choice would be 3 to 5 on a Wednesday. I'm not really happy about 8 a.m. I take the bus or E-line, B-line. B-line doesn't run until 8 a.m. So I'd have to catch the 90 on the Metro. I know that the one we are meeting at now isn't everyone's favorite because we wouldn't be discussing this if it was. So I guess my initial comment would be I would be happiest with 3 to 5 on a Wednesday.
Thank you for your comment. Edwin?
I think we discussed it, and yeah, maybe not all of us agreed, but I thought 8 a.m. was the one that was
Your mic is off.
requested, and that's what was provided as an option. So I
Yes.
would go with 8 a.m.
Okay,
Thank you.
we realized that too. Thanks.
Thank you. We got that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm happy with the current configuration, and I'm okay with the times being at 2 o'clock held on Thursdays. And I also agree with committee member O'Shaughnessy. It would be a road not being able to be traveled if it were to occur earlier than 9 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. What about committee
well-
member Edwin?
Well, I mean, my only issue with, I think I proposed it last time to change it, and my only concern was that middays are usually not the best option for me. I mean, midday, 3 o'clock is still midday for me, but now I hear that one of the committee members has an issue with being here. I see only one option in the morning, so just basically that's Thursdays at 8 a.m. But if that would preclude another member to systematically miss the meetings, then I think it's just fair to either keep the existing time
Employee award.
or, I don't know, what is the difference between the 2 p.m. on a Wednesday or Thursday? I'm like indifferent between the options. So if that means that we don't have any other options, I guess one option would be just to continue with the current schedule.
And obviously, I think we brought up this discussion because of prior members that we had in the committee that current attend. So we're thinking of an alternative time frame. So my preference is 8 a.m. as it was back in the days. I know we have others here, so I guess we have to kind of come to a conclusion here as to, I mean, we got one person that can't do 8 a.m.
I didn't say can't, I just said it would put me to some additional effort, which is not easy since I don't drive. And I'm not in the mood to motorize my wheelchair from South Glendale all the way up here. That's a decent roll versus a hike.
The only other thing that I would add is during the day and during market hours primarily is when I do function within my professional practice. And, I mean, preferably 8 a.m. would not suit that for that purpose. Not because it's early.
All right. So does anyone want to make a motion for a specific option we have here? And then we can go from there.
Well, I'll move for mine just so that we can either do it or discard it, which would leave us with 8. So I'm moving that we adopt the Wednesday meeting from 3 to 5.
Anyone wants to second that?
See, that's easy. We disposed of that one.
I would propose we just keep it the way it is.
I agree.
I would second that.
I will abstain, but I will be here.
Yeah, meaning keeping the time as is, the
No,
schedule.
I'm saying if 4 of you are going to vote for 8 a.m., I'll just abstain, so that my public record vote is that I'm not approving it, but I'm not disproving it because you've got 4.
I mean, I think it's just only fair to make sure that everybody has, access to the meeting, and if.
No, I think we had a good discussion. That's why I thought it would be good to get rid of mine first, since I can count a room.
So there was no second on that motion then?
There was Jack Mavian, committee member Mavian seconded the motion.
No,
You don't have to make a motion if you're keeping it the same.
Yeah,
You don't have to act on
I
that.
believe Commissioner O'Shaughnessy mentioned Wednesday from 3 to 5. I support keeping it as is on Thursdays from 2.
The only thing, if I may, would like to ask is that if we end up keeping our time the same, the schedule the same as on Thursday, or any time on Thursday except in the morning, I may have to skip one meeting during the year, or maybe 2 meetings max, but that's about it. I'll try everything not to, but, occasionally.
So we have an issue with afternoon with you then, right? Somewhat. here and
Right.
there. It's just like the 8 a.m. that we have. So we can't really, what about a later time for you? 3 p.m.?
No,
Just any time afternoon.
anything after 12 o'clock is not really.
It just doesn't work for you.
Yes.
All right. I can't do a motion, can I? As a
But
chair-
you can
can.
pass the gavel and make a motion.
Oh. All right.
And just to add, I would be okay with, but I think the alternatives that we were given, that's the only reason why I'm not choosing 8 a.m. or,
Yeah.
any other time in the afternoon.
I thought you'd already made the motion.
No, it was,
No? Okay.
no. So we're still stuck at yours, so we have to.
How about
um,
keeping it at the same time? I mean,
She
or
says if we keep it at the same time, we don't have to.
We don't have to do a motion.
then how will we resolve this
Are we-
agenda item?
Are we all okay keeping it in?
Do you want to? Are you good with it?
I'm flexible, so I can do whatever you guys want.
All right, so,
But there's no point in moving it from 2 o'clock on Thursday to 3 o'clock on
No,
Wednesday.
exactly. That's my point.
we'll
Yes.
be getting home late. All right, we have made a consensus here. So the audit committee here has decided to not move forward with a vote and keep the same time frame that we have currently.
So does that mean we don't need a resolution? We'll just keep the old resolution, right, Lucy?
Great. All right, next item.
Item number 6, reports and information, Part A, internal audit activity report as of September 30, 2023. Jesse Jung, internal audit manager.
Let me get this there.
Staff report.
All right. Here. So, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Audit Committee members. This afternoon, I would like to provide you a report on the internal audit activities for the quarter ended September 30th, 2023. So there are 7 sections in this report. We'll go over them one by one. Section 1 is a list of projects that we have completed during the past quarter. We have prepared 2 PowerPoint presentations for you. The first presentation is the PCI compliance audit. As you know, we perform PCI audit 3 times a year. We'll make sure at least once a year we'll give you the full version of the presentation. This this year, I think in April, we did a full version, and the last meeting, we did a brief version of the presentation. So today, it will up to you if you would like us to do the full version of the presentation, including all the payment card background information, or we can skip the background and go to the testing results for this third audit. So
Because we have two new members, maybe they'll want to listen to the full version, or you guys are good with the summarized version?
Okay, summarize version.
Summarized, you guys? All right, let's go with the summarized version, please.
summarize
Yeah,
the
they're-
brief
they'll-
version?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means we'll start with 11, page 11. And actually, before Natalie starts her presentation, I would like to just let the committee know that Natalie has recently been promoted to principal internal auditor. Natalie has actually just celebrated her 20 year with the city this morning.
Oh, congratulations.
And yeah, she has many years of experience in auditing, and she continues to develop some really advanced technical skills, advanced Excel, the Power BI, and then writing scripts. That's really impressive. So her audit has always been very thorough and often result in many good recommendations to help the city improve the governance, risk management, and operational efficiency. Natalie has 2 professional certifications, Certified Public Accountant, CPA, and a Certified Internal Auditor, CIA. So yeah, I would like to thank Natalie for her many years of hard work and dedication and contribution to the success of the internal audit team. Yeah, please join me to congratulate her for this new milestone and wish her more success in the future.
Thank you.
Now you may start the presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Patajon and fellow Audit Committee members. My name is Natalie Manami Valdivia, and I'm a Principal Internal Auditor within the Internal Audit
Is
Division.
the mic on?
This
Or
one I
that
think
one
is on all
always
the
on?
time, right?
Okay, good. Closer.
Get closer. All right, so as Jesse mentioned, this is the third and final audit performed by internal audit for the PCI compliance for fiscal year, or actually calendar year 2023. And this audit included, is the third audit. It included 6 sites, 3 systems, and 7 tasks. And so as you recall, the goal of internal audit was to perform to review all in-scope sites, systems, and calendar tasks before the annual assessment that's performed by our external third-party qualified security assessor, who is scheduled to be out here actually in mid-November. So go on. The objective of our audit is to determine the city's ongoing compliance with its PCI policy and procedures. And the scope was based upon the PCI DSS in-scope requirements as defined by our external qualified security assessor. Our audit process included conducting the site visits, performing system assessments, and verifying the calendar events were completed. So during our site visits, we perform a review of the department's policies and procedures, and we perform a walkthrough of their credit card transaction processes, including the types of credit card transactions that are performed at that site, which could be in person, mail, or by telephone. And we verified that the employees are aware of their department's PCI policy and that they are aware of the location of the most current policy. We compare the serial numbers of the devices to the device listings, and we review the tamper logs and verify that all employees that handle credit card transactions have completed the required PCI training. For the systems, for our review of the systems, we collect all of the attestations of compliance from the vendors. We review the contracts for PCI compliance language. We perform system reviews that include ensuring that the 16-digit primary account numbers are not maintained within the system, and we also confirm that the password settings and any software updates are performed in accordance with the system policies. For the calendar tasks, for this third and final audit, we covered June through August, and it included taking a look at the department payment card acceptance and processing procedures and the PCI admin procedures, ensuring that the PCI DSS audit and compliance was validated, that there was a PCI DSS compliance quarterly team meeting, and that the quarterly vulnerability scan update was performed, that the payment card incident response plan was reviewed and updated, and actually they performed a test of that incident response plan, and then also that the third-party service provider contractor PO AOC, which is the attestation of compliance, was reviewed and is monitored. The next slide is a summary of results, and as you can see in the summary of results for this past quarter, we identified exceptions in 2 of the 6 sites reviewed, 1 of the 3 systems reviewed, and 1 of the 7 calendar tasks reviewed. To provide you with a summary of the findings for the 2 sites with exceptions identified, those exceptions were related to the consistent completion of the tamper log review. For the systems, there was 1 system with an exception related to the completion of the vulnerability management task in a timely manner. And the last one was 1 calendar task related to the review and update of a system policy and procedure was identified. So to bring you up to speed, our city treasurer's office and our city departments were very proactive in addressing the observations. So the 2 sites, when referring to the tamper log, the city treasurer's office has already drafted a new tamper log template that includes the serial numbers and the tamper seal numbers, as well as pre-printed dates to help assist the departments in ensuring that we don't miss the tamper log reviews. So they are actually in the process of conducting their pre-audit for the external QSA, and during that process, they're verifying all of the information, and we'll roll out that template shortly. For the system audit, the system exception, that it was remediated by the completion of the vulnerability management task, and similarly, the calendar task was also remediated by the review and update of the system policy and procedure. So that completes my presentation. I'd like to thank the City Treasurer's Office and City Department staff for their assistance throughout the audit process. And the Assistant Treasurer, Guillaume Murray, and myself are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the great presentation, Annalie, and congratulations again for your promotion. And the city's lucky to have you. Any questions here?
Thank you very much.
You mentioned on the one on the third topic that they were getting pre-printed, pre-established, lines filled in templates. That makes it extremely easy not to be wrong unless they enter the numbers wrong. But Is there something else that we need to understand about why someone couldn't take the same form they use every time they do this and fill it in because they've got the same calendar the rest of us have?
For the tamper log reviews? So it depends on which site it is and how often the tamper log review is being performed. Because if the if the devices are public facing, there is a different requirement than if the devices are behind the counter and can't be accessed by the public. But I'm sorry for just to make sure that the days that they're open, that there is a line item for each of them, so they can clearly see if that line item has not been completed. They'll know that they missed a
So to
tamper check.
clarify, every department that has to file a tamper log doesn't do it monthly or as consistent time. Different departments have different times at which point they have to file it.
This is just in most cases, so if the device is facing the public, they have to do it on a daily basis. But there are different dates. For example, the Department of Community Services and Parks, their facilities, the recreation facilities, may be open 7 days a week, versus a city department location may only be open 5 days a week. So there are variances between.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. One kind of bigger picture is, from what you've seen, are there any issues going into the audit starting in November from these items?
I don't believe so. I think our department, our city departments, as well as city treasurer's office, do a great job in building the awareness and addressing the issues as they come up. So I think that we should be in good shape going into this annual assessment. And additionally, for our system assessments, the external QSA actually participates in our reviews to make sure that we haven't missed anything. So I think we should be, again, well prepared.
And then on that same point, the tamper seal review, just from reading this, and I could have it wrong, it appears that there just wasn't a consistency on a department by department basis. So Treasury putting together this log creates that consistency from a process standpoint?
It's more, it wasn't consistent in one by location. So they were filling it out basically daily, but for whatever reason, for example, in one case, maybe they're training a new employee and they missed that particular tamper seal review that day. Or there's someone that has covered a shift for the day. It's just, it's not necessarily inconsistent across all departments. It's inconsistency within one particular site.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just questions along those lines. In your quarterly analysis, have you come across to issues that pertain to a specific site more than others? Or there's an issue, like an exception that you mentioned, that maybe it's not, at a very elevated risk level, but it's just, it's there every time you review it. It may not be at the same site, but some other places. Could you just maybe identify if you have come across to issues like that?
So for the sites, we check for the same criteria during all 3 audits. And I think the one that has been the recurring theme has to do with the tamper seal log review. And of course, because that one in some instances is done on a daily basis, it has many chances to be missed, right? So I think that was the one that has been has been consistent since I began doing the PCI compliance audits. As far as, I think this is, since I started doing these reviews, the 3 that were done this year, this is the first time I've had a system exception, and the first time that I've had a calendar task exception.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No other questions? No? All right. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
All right, next item, please.
So The next presentation is by our Senior Internal Auditor, Ani Antonician, on the audit of a business registration certificate.
Good afternoon, committee members, Chair Parajon. My name is Ani Antonesian. I'm a senior internal auditor within the Internal Audit Division. Today, I'll be reviewing an audit we recently completed on the business registration certificates that are given in the city. So, per the Glendale Municipal Code Section 504-030, nobody can conduct business in the city without getting a valid business registration certificate. And these BRCs, they look like this. If you own a business or you've frequented a business, maybe you've seen it. The BRCs are administered by the Neighborhood Services Division within the Community Development Department, CDD for short. So a bit of a background as to how a BRC application is submitted and issued. First, the application is received, staff check it for completeness, and then staff ensure that the address is verified and it matches a legal one in the system. Then they perform a zoning verification review to ensure that the business type is allowed in that given zone. If there are any issues, such as the application is incomplete or the address is, it's not a legal address provided, or there are zoning issues, staff work with the applicant and or the planning division to ensure that the problems are resolved prior to issuing the BRC. And finally, if all goes well, the BRC is issued. BRCs also need to be renewed annually. So the renewal process is shorter. CDD staff check to ensure that, for a couple of things, that the application is complete, and as long as there are no changes to ownership or address, then the BRC is issued again. Some key facts. So the BRCs are managed via a system called InterGov. This was acquired by the city in last year, September 2022, it went live. Before, they were managed by a third-party vendor. BRCs are issued, and these are the figures per our citywide schedule of fees. So the new one is issued at $262, and it can be renewed at $50. And just to note, a typical application does have zoning surcharges, so your typical fee would be at $279.55, I believe. So, no refunds are allowed unless the application is submitted in error, and the application is voided if it's not issued within 180 days. Some analytical background for you. So as of August 9, 2023, there were, per the InterGov system that we reviewed for BRC specifically, there were 2,477 active registered businesses that we noted at unique addresses. So this chart, we just wanted to see how fast we're issuing the BRCs, and a large chunk of it, as you see, 58%, it took more than 30 days to issue. And these are just based on 518 BRCs issued in this new system since September of last year. The objective of the audit was to determine whether the BRCs are administered efficiently, effectively, and that they're code compliant. And the scope was the InterGov data that we looked at from 2012 to 2023. So this included the vendor-managed BRCs, of course. And we also performed detailed test work on fiscal year 2023 on original and new BRCs in InterGov to ensure that the fees are accurately charged, collected, and reconciled to the city's financial system. To complete the audit, we interviewed city staff. We reviewed BRC data in InterGov and performed analytics. We took a deep dive in the municipal code, city's existing policies and procedures. We performed detailed test work on the BRC fees, and we also performed a survey of business license fee structures, which I'll provide you the results later on. In the audit, you'll note 8 opportunities for improvement. I'll highlight them in 5 categories: renewals and issuance, fees, refunds and denials, data quality, and the survey that we perform. So the first one that we can get into covers audit results 1, 3, and 4 in the audit. So the first observation was related to the way the BRCs is renewed. So we noted when the audit started that CDD management was allowing the BRCs to be renewed past the expiration date. The GMC is very clear that they can only be renewed up to the expiration, and they're considered void, and you have to file a new application. So we do recommend enforcing these expiration dates. Currently, when you already have an existing BRC, to get it renewed, you'll get a letter 60 days, 30 days, these automatic notices that go, you have to renew. But the notices don't exactly note the consequence that if you don't pay, you got to pay the new fee. So we recommend doing that. Also, in a major finding, as I mentioned, there were vendor BRCs. So we noted 4,278 BRCs that were expired. 99% of these were those older vendor migrated records, and over 80% were expired from 2015 to 2022. So we recommend reviewing these expired ones and notifying the applicants if they're still active to get new ones. And also establishing monitoring procedures to ensure that BRCs are renewed timely. On the issuance front, so when we reviewed the BRC issuance practices, we noted that the city currently doesn't have a complete inventory of all businesses. So CDD management was already aware of that problem, and so they have proactively, they're going to be utilizing GWPs because when you open a business, obviously you have to have utilities. So Glendale Water and Power also has a database of all the commercial utility account data. They will be performing a gap analysis to identify businesses that don't have BRCs. As I've mentioned before, there's this 180-day deadline with BRCs. That's very important. So from the moment that you apply for a BRC, you have 6 months until it gets issued. If it's not, you have to apply for a new one. We noted that this 180-day deadline, we're not really, we cannot easily identify who is past the deadline to ensure that we reach out to them systematically and say, you need to get a new one. And also, we also noted that the GMC also requires that businesses that don't have a physical location, they also need to display a BRC, which implies they need to get one. In our internal procedures, we need to just clarify which businesses would fall under that. So for instance, like I think CDD management provide an example of food trucks would be an instance of that. And finally, we also wanted to understand how fast we are issuing the BRCs. And as you noted from the previous graph, they do take a bit longer. We took a detailed look at the ones that took 30 days or longer to figure out the reasons. And most of the reasons fell under the requirements that fall under the planning division. And this is not to say that the planning division staff are not doing an efficient job. It's just the requirements that I will talk about in a second take longer on the applicant to meet. So for instance, you would apply for a BRC, and before CDD management has changed, these are no longer requirements, but before you would have to meet a change, you would have to address issues related to change or use, square footage changes, if the tenant, if you're made any improvements, or if you're applying for a BRC and you're a sublease, but your main tenant did not have a BRC, your BRC would be on hold. So these requirements would not be, they're not required any longer. So we hope that the duration will significantly be reduced, and we recommend redoing this kind of analysis to see if we get better numbers. Audit result 2 on the fee side, we did note that when we reviewed Intergov for 2,586 BRCs issued in fiscal year 23, we did note that Intergov and Munis, so Intergov is that permitting system where we collect the payment, and Munis is our financial system. There were a few glitches where they didn't auto-integrate, so staff had to manually input the data. And that sometimes resulted in, us looking in a financial transaction report at like $50 and not knowing which BRC number it's for. So we want to improve system integration, and if manual entry has to be done, manual imports are recommended, and making sure that the BRC numbers are noted. Out of the 2,586 payments, it appeared only 2 businesses were double charged for BRCs. We recommend reviewing these and preventing these from happening in the future. There were also 19 vendor BRCs that were issued. 16 of them didn't show payment in either system. So because of migration or whatnot, it seems that there were some issues. 3 had receipts in the city's financial system, but not in Intergov. We recommend reviewing these instances to identify if fees should be collected for these BRCs. A couple of other observations on refunds and denials. So the GMC states that application fees are generally non-refundable. We did note that BRCs can be refunded the fees when the application is submitted in error. These refunding exceptions do need to be documented. Also, the refunding process, when we looked at it, it has to be done manually, so it's not automated to the degree that we would have liked to have seen. And it is very time-consuming. 2 different departments are involved, so we recommend looking into options, if possible, to automate or keeping it to a single department instead of 2 departments to do this process. And also, we did a quick review of the possible reasons for refunds and provided to management for consideration. We could perhaps make the application a little better and provide the reasons, don't apply for a home occupancy permit or something like that, which were one of the reasons we saw people would submit a BRC when they just need that other permit. And also doing reconciliation from the manual tracking sheets that are kept for refunds to the Munis system. And another observation on denials. So there were very rare instances when a BRC application was denied. We would just want to ensure that the municipal code is followed for these. A standard form letter is used to communicate the denial and the reasons why your application is denied, but we just want to ensure that a copy of this notice is retained in the system. And some observations on data quality. We reviewed over 7,000 BRC records from InterGov and noted there were 68 businesses that had, that's about 1% of the total reviewed, that appeared to have more than 1 unique BRC that was issued. We recommend CDD review these businesses and ensure that we are issuing only a single BRC. We came across 8 unique BRCs that were issued but had missing business name or business address. Obviously, it is important to have controls where all the important fields are populated when issuing these certificates. There were 651 or 9% of the BRCs that had data quality issues in terms of the application days came after the issued dates. So as you see, there are errors, and most of these are from the migrated records. We wanted to ensure that the ones that we have, the city has started to issue in this new system, that the expiration date is accurately entered, because that's an obvious risk, right? If we enter the wrong expiration date, we could charge them early, etc. So for those, we did not want to see any errors, but we did come across 2, that's 0.4% of the population we looked at that had inaccurate dates. So we recommend automating the expiration date entry completely so staff cannot do manual entry. We did review a status called closed that a BRC could be in. It was tracking too many scenarios. Like if the business would relocate, would put it in the BRC in closed status. If the BRC was withdrawn, so it was not renewed, it would be put in closed status. Or if it was past due, initial BRC application, same thing. So diversifying that category, stratifying it into the appropriate categories is recommended. And also, if we do want an answer to the question of what types of businesses we have in the city, we don't have a good quality answer on that because we don't collect systematic data, so we recommend that. Finally, the survey we performed, so we conducted a brief online research of business certificate, license, tax-related information from 10 jurisdictions that the city usually uses for surveying and benchmarking. And we did note that Glendale was the only city that, regardless of your business type, regardless of your gross receipts, number of employees, it was just a flat fee, for registering your business. And we did note that the 10 cities in the survey had more complex structures. And there's an appendix if you'd like to take a deeper look at that. So they had, if you were a smaller business, you might get a flat fee, but larger businesses, there was a variable unit component. So it might be based on your percentage of your gross receipts, number of people you employ, or the business unit. So like if you're a contractor, for every 1,000 valuation, you get $1. The city would get $1. So we recommend performing a cost-benefit analysis to ensure that the benefit of being such a business-friendly city, that, for instance, you don't have to pay up to like $50,000 in a neighboring city, that we are really marketing that, and that benefit really outweighs the potential revenues from a tax-based approach. So if this path is considered, then a formal survey and a cost study are recommended. That concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank CDD, Finance, and the Information Technology staff for their assistance during this project. And CDD staff and I are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great report. Anyone has any questions from the committee members here?
Does the BRC need to be physically visible at the business for anyone who wants to see it? Or it can be on that blind wall in the back corner where you have the HR stuff and the state stuff that everyone has to post, but nobody ever looks at?
Right, it does have to be, per the GMC, it does have to be physically located in a prominent location.
Thank you.
I had a few clarifying questions. In the report, when it said non-intergov, I assume that's from the old system?
That is the vendor-managed BRCs. So before the intergov system.
Yeah, and then intergov BRCs are current from September.
That's right. September.
And then I like the background of the stats in section C, but I think that's just to give us a view of like the current of what a year might look like versus you look like in the report or in the audit, you did a lot more samples than a current year. So do you know how far back you went?
Yeah, so for certain types, we sliced and diced based on what we're looking for, but obviously we did not want to rely on vendor data necessarily, because as you may have noticed, there were a lot of data quality issues. So we relied on our practices, talking to our staff, what we've been doing as of September for reliable statistics, basically.
Yeah, okay. And then you wrote in the report that there was a policy to renew BRCs.
30 days past due, but the original rule was not past due. Why did they have an internal policy that stated that? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know, Tamara, if you want to take it.
I am Tamar Sad. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Development, and I oversee neighborhood services. I am new to this role, and so there was kind of like a learning process of what have we been doing. And I do want to thank Ani. This was a painless audit, but she really delved in. We've known that the BRC needed like a deep dive for some time. I think this had been on the back burner with the audit team for a while. I'm like, just one more year, because it had been with the vendor, and we wanted to bring it in-house and clean it all up. So looking at why that 30 days, I think that had just kind of evolved over time. But it is clear in the GMC, and I just think that hadn't been referenced. And so as soon as that was pointed out, that we wanted to give people a grace period, not like the day that it expired, well, I forgot to get to it, and then not having the chance. But once we started looking at what was actually in the GMC and what was causing some of the errors, we immediately rectified that. We actually made that an automatic thing through the InterGov system, where at the 30-day mark, the BRC received a hold, and so they couldn't renew it online. The transition between the vendor to us just kind of muddled that and putting those systems in place. But since Ani has done this audit and pointed these things out, we were sure to implement policies right away. So those types of errors won't happen moving forward.
Great. And just another question for you before you go. So in point 8 about the variable fee structure and diving into it, I think one of the things you're going to probably consider is the number of additional resources and what kind of the revenue incremental would be. So I just wanted to make sure that that's something you guys are thinking about as well.
Right, and I'm sure you've covered it in other sessions, but our fees they need to be based on staff work. We can't charge a $700 fee for something that only takes us $300 of staff time. And so because the registration is just a registration, to us, if you have 10 employees or you have 1,000 employees or you make $1 million a year or $10 million a year, at this point, we wouldn't be able to justify charging different rates. But as Ani said, it would be a full study. It's not a tax, and so it is just a fee for that service. So if we did ever look at a tax, those types of considerations would absolutely be included. But at this point, we wouldn't be able to do a variable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple quick questions, just for my edification. The first one, let's say it's a big business in Pasadena, sets up a branch in Glendale, brick and mortar. Do they need to get a BRC to operate in?
Yes, for every branch that's at a unique location, you need to get a new BRC.
So even if I'm headquartered in Glendale, but I have like 3 branches across the city, I need to get one BRC per
That's
location.
right. For each unique address, you need a BRC.
And then I was one thing that was a question for me was that what happens if a small business sets up but doesn't get a BRC? What is the mechanism that you identify those? I want to give you an example. Let's say a business co-locates with another business, inside one building, and they just set up shop and start working. Is there a mechanism that, let's say, the city of Glendale can find out, oh, this new entity is operating the same location?
Right. Ms. Saad can add to this, but as far as I'm aware, there is no proactive mechanism or proactive enforcement because it is in the schedule of fees where we do have a tiered fees. If you're a business operating without a BRC, you can be fined, but the city is not proactively enforcing that right now. CDD management is going to be performing an educational campaign to raise awareness of the need for a BRC if you're operating in Glendale. So after an educational campaign, I think it would be fair to enforce that.
I was going to ask, what if somebody sets up shop but doesn't really know that they have to apply for a BRC? Do they get a letter? We saw that you just set up your business with,
That's an excellent question. And you will note that there's only about 2,000 issued BRCs. We estimate that there's about 10,000 businesses in Glendale. So this is not something that has high compliance. But that was our goal with bringing it in-house, taking it back from the vendor, was to be able to do that direct outreach and to get businesses into compliance. We've seen this as something that needed to be addressed for a while. So we will be doing an educational campaign. As with anything, if you wanted to remodel your bathroom and never pulled permits, we educate, and we anticipate that people would get a BRC. Our job is to educate and do outreach, and then if we don't know the business exists, it would be difficult for us to reach out to them. I did want to also address the zoning, or the question you had about the multiple locations. The primary function of the BRC is also to serve as a zoning verification, so that you don't put an industrial business into a non-industrial area. So that is why each location needs its own BRC. It is to know what the type of business is and to make sure that it can operate in that zone, because we do have different districts in the city where you can do one type of business but not another.
I see. And my last question, I thought this might be an interesting thing for somebody who's doing research, for example. Is this information publicly available, or this is an internal data set that only city?
Are you talking about the InterGov data?
Wherever I can find the BRC listings and how many new BRCs are issued, if I want to see how many.
That information is not public, but we do regularly get public records requests for a listing of all new businesses. Parts of the InterGov portal are public. If you wanted to see what permits had been pulled in your neighborhood, you just search the address and permits come up. So I do believe that if you were to search a specific business location, you would have the information on whether or not they have a BRC. I don't think there's an actual listing that is available.
Would you know if any other cities, not necessarily Glendale, but any other cities have that publicly available?
Like a catalog of
Something like that. I mean, I'm kind of thinking it's interesting. I want to understand the structure of business in Glendale. I want to see what type of businesses operate in this city.
It's a good suggestion. If it's not available, that's something that we could definitely incorporate. We do, community development also houses economic development. And so, promoting the local businesses is of great importance. So that's a great suggestion, if it's not something we have available now.
Okay,
But I'm not aware that it is
thank you. Thank you.
Real quick, so did you say we have 2,000
registered.
registered, but you think there's close to 10,000?
Correct.
That's a pretty big
Yeah. It's,
revenue loss
it
for the
is.
city.
Part of that was the BRC was trying to be too many things at once. Its primary function is to register businesses, but there were other parts that were holding that process up. The vendor we had initially contracted with, had promised grandiose things, and at the end of the day, you send so many letters, but without the enforcement aspect of it, you don't have the opportunity to ensure compliance. Bringing it back into neighborhood services allows us, neighborhood services has two functions, the licensing function and also the code enforcement function. So, now we are aware of what businesses are here. We send letter, and then it's after an education campaign, the enforcement component. So we will achieve compliance. That is my goal for the next year, is to achieve 100% compliance. But the way we had it before didn't have that enforcement component, and so you can throw away letters. But it is critical that we do have businesses in compliance, not only for the data, but for us to better serve those businesses. If we know what types of businesses are here, we can have services that complement that, but also to ensure businesses are operating in their correct zones and have correct conditional use permits or whatever other permits they need to operate.
Great, thank you.
No questions?
I was just going to say, wouldn't most of this business information be available at the Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles, when you record your entity or any entity? Wouldn't that information already be?
At the county level?
Yeah.
I'm not aware if it's at the county level you need to register. I do know there are state rules that you need to comply with, but we weren't able to get, I wasn't able to find a public database of that. That I could use the data for. Like, I think if you're searching for a DBA, you can go to the state website and try to find that, if that business name exists. But I wasn't able to find a usable data set to get like a good number of businesses or,
Yeah, if so, for a DBA or for any type of entity, right, in the state of California, I think we could find. I was just curious as to what the actual purpose would be. It seems like an additional tax on businesses here. What would the fruit of, being compliant with an additional fee? What is the fruit of that fee? Is my question, I suppose.
Yeah. So the business registration certificate the service that comes with that fee is registering with the city, but it's also to ensure your compliance with zoning. That was, prior to the BRC, we had a thing called the zoning use certificate, the ZUC, and all businesses needed that to open. And the function of that was just to check your zone. Having businesses in the right locations in the city is really critical for parking, for the environmental. It makes it difficult to have, alcohol sales. Those have to be regulated, and all of that is checked through the zoning process, because you wouldn't want, an alcohol location very close to school. Exactly. And so we have no ability of verifying that if you don't go through any sort of process with us. And so that is the service or the fee, the reason for the fee for the BRC.
Now I have a question here. I know the city of LA is very good in pretty much setting a notice out to new companies once they file their tax return. They'll get notified, hey, you haven't filed city of LA business registration. So City of LA already has that mechanism. How come we can't get that mechanism here, so that we'll be able to tap into that information, so that you'll be informed of a city that's in Glendale, I mean, a company that's in Glendale, someone that filed a business return, brand new, or anything else. Also, when a new business is registered with the state of California, they get notification quickly about the same information from an outside party source, which means they're getting some sort of information of a new business registered within that area. So is the city of Glendale timeline to get to this system? Is it 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What's your scope on
So
this?
for LA, they have a tax. So they're tapped into a different market, like the property tax. They know when you own property, and this is not a tax. So we're not privy to that type of information. If there's some special database that will ping everybody, I'd love to know about it. We have the GWP data for commercial businesses, but that is also not perfect, right? Because if you own a tower in Glendale and there's 500 tenants in it, all those tenants aren't individually being billed. So I don't have all of that information. I have the tower's information. And so it is not perfect, but I will say that with outreach, which we have not done, I think that we're going to get to much closer to 100% compliance than we are now. The education campaign is really going to be the first step, and giving people the opportunity to even understand that they need this, and then moving into enforcement. But enforcement would come much after education.
And what's your timeline on this?
The InterGov system is getting an update now, and so we're not able to touch it. But in January, we have a series of changes to the BRC itself and the questions that are asked. Currently, we don't ask the number of employees. We don't ask gross revenue. And having that data would better allow us to provide services to businesses. So in January, we'll be making those modifications to the questions we ask, and then beginning the education campaign immediately after that. Because staff actually has to process this, we would be doing 500 at a time, as opposed to sending everyone at once. Because if everybody applied for a BRC at once, they're not going to hear back from us for a while. So we'll be rolling that out. But my goal would be to hit every business by the end of 2024.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? Annie, thank you for the great report, great informative information for all of us here. We knew about this business tax that existed here. Well, it's not a tax, a licensing requirement for the city of Glendale. But obviously, there needs to be better enforcement on it, because like the numbers state right there, 8,000 businesses out there still not registered. And I think it's probably a larger number on that, because I'm in this industry and I know none of my customers are registered. So I just, so we'll be talking so we can get them all registered.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the good questions and then answers. Tamar, thanks for being here. Oh,
Mike, thanks for being here and answer all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So the next section of this activity report is project in progress. We currently have one. It's a Beeline Fixed Transit Route PSA audit. Natalie has been working on this audit and is currently wrapping up. And I'm hoping this audit will be completed by the end of this year. So then you will hear her presentation in January. The next section is continuous auditing. So there are two audits completed during this past quarter, the P-card and user access control Active Directory. So you're quite familiar with these type of audits. And actually, I think at the July meeting, committee member Belen asked about maybe others too asked about the tools that we use for conducting our audit activities. And so I will spend a few more minutes to share with you, the SharePoint sites we use to keep track of our continuous auditing activities. So let me see if it's still open. Continuous auditing. Okay, so here, let me drag this one over.
If I move to reconsider, would you second it?
Sure.
So this is the, we have total 3 SharePoint sites we use to perform risk assessment, quarterly follow-up, and then continuous auditing. So these sites provide pretty much everything you need to know about continuous auditing, and most of the high-level information are included in the activity report. For example, this introduction talked about what it is, what continuous audit is, automatic method used to perform audit activities on a more frequent basis, and then what software we use is Abutus Analyzer software, and along with some of the Office 365 available tools like List, MS List, Power BI, and Power Automate. And then why we're doing it, so the benefit of it, continuous auditing increase internal audit capacity, cover greater data populations, and provide more frequent assurance over business controls. And then how these type of audit is performed. It's basically each audit includes a machine and a human component, and the machine component basically is we use the software to perform routine and repetitive audit steps, and then the human component is the auditor's manual review of the outliers that produced by running the scripts. So here you can even see here a high-level summary of all tests performed is also communicated to quarterly to Audit Committee and City Council within this activity report. So here is the interactive Power BI dashboard. Has an overview page with information on what type of tests we perform, and the beauty of the Power BI is you can click anywhere on the screen, and then to drill down the information you would like to know. And there's also the time you can, so like you can see we started this continuous auditing journey back in 2018, so that's the starting point. Then you can drag and then see different time frame, what kind of audit we performed. And there's also a dialog box. Then you can just type in a question, and then it will give you, say, for example, how many test category. So then here's the 5 that reflected in this pie chart. We have a P card, accounts payable, cybersecurity, employee, it's too little, employee expense, and financial reporting categories. And this chart give you a summary of the outliers reviewed and exceptions identified. Over here, the second page provide a little bit more detail, basically to present, because one of the main benefit of doing the data analytics is the data coverage. So then here you can see the amount tested, duration, data tested, and then the average hours spent on each test. And then this chart also, the bar chart also show the exceptions and outliers reviewed based on different control area. And further, there's just so many you can do with the Power BI. And then here we have some trend. So if I say pick cybersecurity, and then you can see it's trending down. There's a couple of years that has a higher number because there are multiple tests have been performed. So the data is a sum, not the average. So then overall, it's a trending down. Especially this year, 2023, we actually already performed the cybersecurity test 3 times, and then both of the outliers and exceptions are done. So, so that's just a quick overview of the this Power BI, and then the next section is the recent completed tests. So then we have the split payment P card, the 3 P card tests that's included in the, this quarterly report, and then this is the UAC ADE test. This is the one we just completed. It will be included in next quarter's report to you. And then we have in here, there's a section of control areas being tested. So these are all the brief descriptions of each of the current tests we do. And you click here, it will open up a Word document also on the SharePoint and have a more detailed description on the objective, scope, methodology, test limitation, and frequency, etc., etc. So it's all included in here. The last section of this page is all the past completed test result. So it's a list. So as you can see, the first one is fiscal year 2023-01. So that's the one we launched this SharePoint page. So that's basically a quick overview of the tools that we use to improve our own efficiency and also to collaborate with, department. So this is on a private site for us, internal audit specifically. The 3 of us are the owners of this site, and then we will have to manually grant access to other employees. So currently, the city manager, assistant city manager, the entire executive team, and the control owners have been granted access to this page. So that's a quick overview of this continuous auditing work we've been doing. As you can see, it's been almost about 5 years since we took on this journey, and it takes a intelligent team and team members. They're motivated and they're courageous, actually. I have to use that word to even, willing and learn how to write scripts. So if when, I asked Natalie, say, oh, let's write some scripts and do some automation in 2018, she's going to say, no way. But we have come a long way, and back then, we probably barely know how to run the scripts that the consultant developed for us. And now, like each Natalie and both Natalie and Ani have developed scripts from scratch. So it's very impressive. So I'm glad Glendale has head start on it. This data analytics, continuous auditing has been pretty much a hot topic on all the conference we have attended. So I'm really proud of my team doing this. So in terms of a maturity level for continuous auditing, there are basically five levels. There's no process to manual process to repeatable and automated and continuous. So we're now currently kind of between repeatable and automated, moving to automated, and then hopefully one day will be truly continuous. So that's basically the quick overview of the continuous auditing. Any questions?
Very impressive. That's where they invented AI to make this happen, and they converted it to IA. So, but
That's
but
interesting.
looking forward to seeing the great things you guys can actually populate out of this great system that looks great. And I
Yeah.
think it's all about just learning the, like you said, the script, creating the script, and just making these audits more feasible and easy to do. So we'll be seeing more fancier reports from you guys, I see.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have the Copilot. That's the Office 365 version of the GPT-4. So then, you could say create a 10-slide PowerPoint presentation from a Word document, So that's what we do, right? We create PowerPoint presentations from the report. So then I can't wait to use that tool.
Welcome to the new world, right?
Yeah, exciting.
Exactly. Anyone else has any questions here? No?
All right. So let's see. Next four sections are related to quarterly follow-up. So section 4 provide a brief summary of the status of the follow-up items. So a total of 11 new items, 8 from BRC, 3 from PCI were added during this past quarter. So as of September 30th, 2023, about 10% of the 61 items from 15 audits were implemented. One item was partially implemented. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And then 54 items remain outstanding. Let's see. So the section 5 is outstanding priority 1, all the items. So this is the one we just talked about from the BRC. And then number 6 is any items that entering one of those discussion criteria. So we have one. So this is the one that I mentioned earlier, the partially implemented. It's because this part is not implemented, and then there's another so this is one of the two sub-items from one full item. So the other half is completed, this half is not, so it's partially implemented. But for this one, the reason that it's not implemented is because it's reaching the 3-year mark. So this committee we have a rule that if any items have been outstanding 3 years from the report issuance, we're going to deem that item not implemented and we'll stop follow-up with them. So, but this item is actually considered as a reasonable or acceptable justification for not being completed, because the feasibility analysis is depend on the upgrade of the smart meter. So then that upgrade is going to happen around 3rd quarter of fiscal year 2024. So, it's just we can't wait till then, so we have to close it. So this is one of the acceptable scenarios that is not being implemented. Others, like if it's not applicable anymore. For example, it's not in the report, but Natalie has a EMS audit, and then there's is that expense report. We recommended expense report to be matched against the city's financial report, but then that item we closed it as not implemented, but it's marked as not applicable anymore because the new program does not require a expense report anymore. So those are some of the examples for the acceptable reasons not being implemented. And then, of course, the last section is the 3 team assignment that internal audit participated. So that concludes my report. Any questions? Yes.
Quick question. On the Investment Policy Advisory Committee, PCI Compliance, less so, Energy Risk Management Committee, as members of the Audit Committee, do we have access to the minutes of these meetings?
I'm sure you can request.
The one in particular I'm interested in is the Investment Policy Advisory Committee, because the policy of how you do your investments includes things like when Jess Unner was treasurer of the state of California and we stopped investing in companies that were involved in Northern Ireland because of the Catholic bias, and that was a repetition of what we did with not getting involved in South Africa because of apartheid. And given the way bans are being thrown around at different levels of government, and the 2 wars we're involved in at this point, plus other issues, I would just be curious to read the minutes on what the policy is for the investments for the city of Glendale. That's the one that particularly I get to, but I'm just interested, because monitoring these would at least make us more informed as an audit committee.
It's a public record. You have access to it.
It's also a public meeting too. You can join. And also, since you're so interested, on which day, September 19, I think each year in September, City Treasurer will present the investment policy to the City Council. So he has a presentation and then he has an annual report. So then, I would encourage you to watch that presentation. It's on September 19 for this year.
One of the reasons I'm expressing a concern at the audit committee level, I'm interested in the policy, but in all honesty, asking that kind of a question in the middle of a presentation to the city council, and given some of the commentary, because I watch the meetings, that comes up about social issues, I don't wish to embarrass the treasurer or the city, but I want to be better informed. But I don't know that a city council meeting is the place to ask that searching a question.
Oh, I'm not,
I
wasn't suggesting to.
Get a sense of it as an audit committee member, but I don't know that I want to throw it out on the front page.
No. I wasn't suggesting you to go. I mean, you definitely can ask questions at city council meeting, but I wasn't suggesting that. I was saying if you want to find more information, there is a presentation done, and then maybe you have already watched it. I'm sure, and then. As Lucy mentioned, for minutes, then you can always ask for that.
Well, if there's a way to have the staff let us know how we can access what is appropriate reports from these kind of setups between our finance department and the rest of the city, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Okay,
other
no
questions?
other questions? Next item?
Item number 7, Audit Committee or staff comments.
I'll let the staff bring any comments they have. None? All right, what about our team here? Any questions?
Yes. I would like to move that we reconsider the item discussed earlier on when the audit committee meets.
Okay, so this would not be the appropriate time to make a motion on that. You can, however, ask that that item be reopened, because it is on the agenda. And then you can propose whatever you want to propose at that point. So if you'd
So
like
you're
us to
saying
read that back
we
into the...
couldn't discuss this until next time we meet?
No, I'm saying that we would have to reopen that agenda item. It would, committee
move
member
forward
comments is not the appropriate time to make a motion. If you want to go back and reopen that agenda item, we could
If
do
we
that
could
now.
reopen that agenda item.
Please ask the chair for that. Are you okay with doing that?
Is there a reason to reopen when we decided already unanimously to get this approved?
The reason I was requesting reconsideration and the reason I'm asking to reopen the agenda item, one member of this 5-member commission may miss 2 meetings in the next year because we're meeting in the afternoon. You have expressed the interest that you liked it better when the older members of the audit committee met in the morning, and my new member next to me says that would be the one he'd like to do. Well, that's still 3 out of 5. I was surprised that we didn't have a 4 vote with 1 abstention, so I'd like to reopen the agenda item so that we can make a motion to go to 8 a.m. and that we could pass that. That's the reason why.
Thank you. And just so you know, we do have one member also with an issue 8 a.m. because of work.
That was me.
No.
Oh, someone,
actually,
oh, I'm sorry.
because he works with the market, and
6:30
so at the end of the day, it's kind of a complex issue. I mean, I'd love to go back to 8, but again, we have one person as well. I can't even do it.
I was
So.
trying to get to the best place for the most of
We
us.
appreciate it, but unfortunately, we have a member, Jack, who won't be able to attend any meetings if we move it.
Then I will withdraw my request to reopen the agenda item.
No, and I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
I think all of our intentions were in good spirit and with good intent. So I was trying to be as accommodating for you as well. But it seems as though, if one person is going to be missing 2, if that's the case, then I would be missing 2
Yeah.
as well. So I think
We'll just play it by ear for now and see
I
what
take
happens.
your sentiments
And
with great.
the great thing is, this is probably one of the first meetings in a while that we had where all 5 of us were present, so that's a good start so far. So, great, thank you. So, no other comments from us here? Let's move on to the next item, please.
Item number 8, new business.
Don't think we have any other of that, so let's go to the last item of the agenda.
Item number 9, adjournment.
Motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Great. Roll call.
We don't need a roll
Oh,
call.
we don't need a roll call for that? All right, well, let's leave.